Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Once again, part of me feels like I'm doing this video a bit early, but if anything, early seems to be the trending classic so far. So let's do this. It's time to get in some preparation for Phase 3. I said a while back I thought Blackwing Lure and the rest of Phase 3 maybe around the 17th of January, but we'll have to see on this, but I'd say that would be the earliest date it could possibly come at. Classic being classic, of course, we have a set roadmap of what will happen at each given phase, so we can gauge what we can do to prepare ourselves for the future. And you may think this is a bit over the top doing this, and only really applies to the super hardcore players, but mostly it comes down to saving gold now or making gold later, so unless your favourite thing to do in the game is grinding gold, I would make some effort to prepare yourself. So we've already had the Battlegrounds release, those being Warsong Gulch and Alterac Valley, and honestly I wouldn't really have had much to say about them in terms of preparation anyway. The only thing people would have really needed are the same consumables that were grinded and stockpiled for Phase 2, like free action, potions, limited invulnerability, health potions, bandages, and so on, you know, the usual stuff. So what else are we getting? Well, I think the big draw of the patch will definitely be the release of the second raid in classic Blackwing Lure, offering many new excellent epic items, bosses, and of course the challenge of actually getting to the dungeon itself. Expect world PvP at the entrance to be very reminiscent of Phase 2, a meat grinder of res runs that is, where mages get to blast helpless masses and churn out some extra honour during peak raiding times. First thing to have in mind is getting attuned, so obviously this will be once the patch is out, so it's not so much in terms of preparation, but what to expect. And I have done a video for all the attunements, by the way. If you're interested and wanted more info, I'll link it below. The Scarshield Quartermaster just outside the entrance to Lower Blackrock Spire drops the letter that starts the attunement quest, and this unfortunate orc is going to have essentially all the raiders on the server camping him. This quest should be shareable, and hopefully we'll be able to do so through a raid. We'll have to wait and see to be sure, however. And this quest will involve your raid blasting through Upper Blackrock Spire to touch the orb at the end of the instance, and following this then you'll be able to interact with a similar orb just along the walkway outside Lower Blackrock Spire. Without the quest, however, you're going to have to complete much of Upper Blackrock Spire to get to the entrance, following this route through the raid, including completing the arena event, which won't be much faster even with a full raid going. This means two things for you. One, your group will need someone with Seal of Ascension. If you don't currently have one, you can look at doing this part of the attunement, though it shouldn't be too hard to find someone with it at this point in time. You can look into getting it if you're interested or a bit of a completionist, but then again, you only need one person with this item in your group to be able to gain access to Upper Blackrock Spire. And number two, there will be a lot of groups running Upper Blackrock Spire for a short period of time. If you are after an item in there, like maybe one of the Dalren swords, the True Strike mantle, Pain with a Band, the recipe for Flask of the Titans I believe drops in there. There are a bunch of good drops in there as well. It would be a good time to clear some space in your day so you can grind out multiple runs. Next part to cover about Blackwing Lure is of course raid consumables. At the moment they've taken quite a big drop. This is mainly due to most people PvPing at the moment, less gold farming going on, less demand overall, as Molten Core at this point is extremely trivial to the point where consumables are just there purely to try and pass really, they're not required whatsoever. All of this will be turned on its head once Blackwing Lure is out, especially since it will be a step up in difficulty from a pure numerical standpoint, though it may just end up being again the hard part of the raid is the trash like Molten Core, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. I would strongly advise stocking up on raid consumables now or investing your gold into spares, as these will fly up the moment Blackwing Lure is announced. If you're raiding, you should already have a good idea of what kind of consumables your class needs, but to give you an idea, you have offensive or damage boosting consumables and then defensive ones. So offensive items include things like the Elixir of Mongoose or Giants, Frostmaul Juju for Juju Might, Greater Arcane Elixir, Elixir of Shadow Powers, Flask of Supreme Power. Buff food wise, the items you can look at are Grilled Squid, which gives 10 agility, Nightfin Soup, that gives mana per 5, Rumsy Rum Black Label, Stamina buff, Rum Tum Tuber Surprise, which is an intellect buff. And then you've got utility potions, free action potions, restorative potions, limited invulnerability potions, and then sort of items in the other category, like major mana or health potions, Runecloth bandages, greater fire protection potions, or greater shadow protection potions. There's even more than that. The list really goes on and on and on. There are so many consumables in Classic, but you get the idea. These items are going to go up in price across the board. Everything will go up. If you have professions, make sure you look at what makes the items too. Raw materials are often the way to go and will make you more money, so pick a few items that you want to be your focus rather than trying to spread yourself too thin across too many areas. And due to the number of items, I'm not going to go over every single reagent here, but for example, Elixir of Shadow Power needs 3 Ghost Mushrooms, so I'd expect those to go up. Grilled Squid needs a Winter Squid, which can only be caught, as the name suggests, in winter months. So try and pick things that have more limited reagents that are a bit more difficult to come by, as these will generally have better margins. Another note for Blackwing Lure is the Onyxia Scale Cloak. This is necessary for the Nefarian fight, as well as for tanks on the Ebon Rock encounter just before. This is made by Leatherworkers, and the reagents come from Onyxia herself, making the supply for these very limited. Keep in mind picking one of these up sooner rather than later, as the demand will suddenly far outweigh the supply once Phase 3 hits. Finally, Phase 3 and Blackwing Allure means that players will be able to craft a Thunderfury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. The missing link in Phase 2 was the ability to craft Elementium bars, which will now become available. Now, to learn this, you need to mind control a goblin who's located quite far into the instance near the trio of dragon bosses called Master Elemental Shaper Crixix. Then have a priest teach each player, whoever needs it, the smelt ability through the extra action button this guy has. Making the actual bar, you need 1 Elementium ore, which is looted from goblins in Blackwing Lure, a Fiery Core, dropped from Molten Core, the Elemental Flux, which is just some vendor item, and finally 10 Arcanite bars. The quest requires 100 Arcanite bars total, as you need 10 Elementium bars. Now, Arcanite bars will have likely dropped off a bit now, but this should put some life back into their price for a short while. The only real issue here is, well, that getting both bindings can take a very long time. People are going to be running Molten Core forever and ever to try and get this weapon. So whilst there will be a demand, since each person's going to need 100 Arcanite bars, which is an enormous amount, it may take some time before you have someone on your server who can actually do the quest. Still, if you are making Arcanite bars at the moment on your cooldown, I would hang on to them for the time being to wait for prices to rise. So that's everything I'd like to cover for Blackwing Lure. Next up, the Darkmoon Faire. Now, the Darkmoon Faire has a number of good benefits that you can prepare to profit from or off. The first thing you need to know are about the tickets, and these come from a variety of simple resource turn-ins and are tiered and cap out at certain reputation values. As you can see, a wide variety of items are affected by this. However, the items you can expect to have the greatest jump in value are the tier 5 items. This is because each of the other tiers are locked to being available at or below a certain reputation threshold with the Darkmoon Faire. So what I mean by this is, for example, tier 3 turn-ins are available at or below 1625 rep, tier 4 at or below 2500 rep, whilst the tier 5s are endlessly repeatable. What all this means is if an item is in the tier 5 bracket, these will be the ones people need the most of. So you want to target dense grinding stones from blacksmith, thorium widgets from engineers, rugged armor kits from leatherworkers, and evil bat eyes, which are dropped from high level bat mobs around the world. These tickets are exchanged for a number of different items, some cosmetics, some quite powerful actually. The Darkmoon storage box should be a far cheaper option than similar 14 slot bags on your server. Note, however, that it is unique. There are 2 epic necks on offer for 1200 tickets each. Both are pretty decent. It's up to you whether it's worth your investment to get them. Even without Blackwing Lure out, there are already better alternatives in the game, but you can bet some people will take the easy route of buying these epics essentially, rather than waiting for RNG to give them the perfect item. Secondly, and I expect these to be far more lucrative, are the decks that are coming out into the game. Now, once again, this only has an impact once the patch is out, but may have a bearing on what activities you do once it is. Sort of like how Thora's Compendium was worth a huge amount of gold early on once Diamore came out, these cards will be very much the same kind of deal here. So heading out and farming early, you could break in a good amount of money. First things first, all cards have 9 decks, the 2 to 8 of their deck plus an ace. Cards 2 to 8 drop as a low chance from random enemies throughout the world. Now, I've found many different reports on what the minimum level enemies are to drop these, as well as what kind of enemies can drop them. And of course, this matters quite a lot. For example, if mages have a chance to grind these cards in Zul'Farrak, it's going to affect their income and prices big time. The lowest estimate I found was at level 45 plus and the highest 50 plus. Some guides even say only humanoids or undead drop them. Databases don't show what drop these cards either, so honestly we're a bit in the dark here. I think this is one where we're going to have to wait and see what happens. Do keep this in mind though. The aces drop from specific bosses, and some of these completed sets are very very powerful, and the aces are also low percentage drop chances too. The Twisting Nether deck is a bit of an expensive meme, to be honest, 10% to be able to reincarnate essentially. The ace drops from Darkmaster, Ganling Scholarmance. Heroism is pretty decent, it's not terrible, it's not gonna, make or break your character. I found reports of around a 10% proc rate, good for grinding solo above anything else I would say. The ace drops from King Gordok in Dire Maul North, so this may be a nice bonus for you hunters soloing tribute runs. Maelstrom is where things start getting good. This one should be worth a fair amount. Solid damage proc for melee classes, including Feral Druids from what I could find, may prove to be pretty popular depending on the price. This can drop from a number of different elementals. So first of all, the leaders of the elemental invasions, which were released with Battlegrounds, so Avalancheon in northeast Ashara, Baron Char in central Ungoro Crater, Princess Tempestria just southwest of Everlook at Lake Keltharill in Winterspring, and the Wind Reaver in northwestern Silithus, as well as from 2 dungeon bosses, Hydra Spawn in Dire Maul East and Lord Incendius in Black Rock Depths. Finally, Blue Dragon, 2% on cast for 100% mana regen for 15 seconds. This is an extremely powerful proc effect. There are some better alternatives, but this is a strong contender for the top healer trinket for the remainder of Classic. This proc basically throws the 5-second rule out of the window during its uptime, meaning it actively scales with your gear and only gets better and better. This trinket is so good that it was even still used at level 70 back in the day. It is, however, a low chance to proc, of course, and if it doesn't proc, well, it's an expensive dead trinket slot. Even so, I think the ace of this will fetch a very good price, and the ace drops off the beast in upper Blackrock Spire, making it the most difficult to come by due to their average group size and the actual length of the dungeon itself. I can already picture the groups of tanks reserving it. So these may change up what you plan to do in Phase 3. I know as a Warlock it certainly makes Dire Maul East a bit more interesting to go back to now I have a chance to get Foras or the Maelstrom Ace from each run. So that covers everything that I wanted to do for Phase 3. There's definitely a lot of new good content coming our way. If there's anything else you guys are planning on or have in mind, you can let me know down below in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.